Well now, ain't this something? The name is Marlowe. I am an innkeeper of the fabled Star Inn. I've got a story for you this evening. If you care to hear, it goes a bit like this. One night, my door opened. The door to the fabled Star Inn cracked open, letting in a gust of wind that carried the scent of grave dirt and something else. Something that made the candle flames flicker nervously. 5 figures stood silhouetted against the threshold, their armor catching the firelight in ways that seemed wrong, as if metal remembered being buried. I looked up from the glass I was polishing and set it down with practiced care. "Welcome to the fabled Star Inn," I said, my voice carrying across the empty tap room. "Come on in from the cold." The first of them stepped forward, a warrior. By his bearing, although his movements held a stiffness that spoke of more than just weariness. Mind you, I am kind of used to that. His eyes met mine, and I saw the familiar confusion there, not quite understanding where they had found themselves. "Innkeeper," he said, his voice rough as crushed stone. "My companions and I, we need drinks. Strong ones." He reached for his coin purse with fingers that trembled slightly. "What's your strongest ale?" I smiled, a gentle expression I perfected over the countless years. "Traveler, no need. Put your money away, friend. The fabled Star here. We don't trade in coin." Paused, hand still on his purse. Behind him, his companions shifted uneasily. "Then what do you want? We have little else to offer." "Stories, friend. Stories," I simply said, reaching for 5 tankards from underneath the bar. That's all I ask. Just some stories. You and your companions. You can have all the food and drink you want, so long as you share with me a story that defined your life. I want your best story, the one that made you who you are." The warrior, Alaric, though he hadn't given me his name yet, watched as I filled the tankards with ale, gleamed amber in the firelight. "That seems too simple." "Yes, you're right. The best trades often are." I slid the first tankard across the bar to him. "Besides, every story told here is worth hearing, no matter how it ends." He lifted the tankard, studying the foam as he might hold the answers. His companions had drawn closer now, their own hands reaching for drinks that I'd set out. The ale was good. It always was at the fabled Star, flavored with memory and seasoning, and with longing as well. "The story then," Alaric said, taking a long pull from his tankard. The tension in his shoulders had eased slightly as the warmth spread through him. He sat the drink down, ran a hand through his hair that still bore traces of tomb dust, of all things, and then met my eyes again. "I should warn you, innkeeper, mine doesn't have a happy ending." "Few do, partner, few do," I said softly, leaning against the bar. Echo, my raven, sat on a nearby rafter to listen. But that doesn't make them any less worth telling now, does it? Alaric nodded, slowly, fingers tracing the rim of his tankard. His companions had found seats at the table near the fire, their own drinks in hand, but their attention was on their leader. He took another sip, he gathered himself, and he began speaking. "The following tale I'd like to call Dead Party Walking." In the darkness of Karathen's tomb possessed weight. Not metaphorically, the shadows pressed down with physical force, crushing against stone walls, carved 3,000 years ago by slaves who died before seeing the sunlight again. Water dripped somewhere in the endless black, each drop counting seconds in a place where time had surrendered meaning. Alaric Thorn lay broken on cold obsidian, his blessed armor forged in the cathedral of Dawn's sacred flames, bore a ragged wound across the chest where corrupt claws had torn through sanctified steel like wet parchment. Blood pooled beneath him, mixing with the ancient dust of empires fallen to ruin. His azure eyes, once bright with divine purpose, stared sightless at nothing. The holy sword, Dawnbringer, rested in 3 pieces beside his outstretched hand. The blade had served 12 generations of paladins before him, had carved through demon flesh and shattered necromantic artifacts across half the continent. Now its light had died, the weapon reduced to a broken metal and fading memories. 30 feet away, Whisper's small form created sharp angles against the smooth stone. The halfling's rogue's neck was bent wrong. Her throat opened in a second smile no amount of healing could close. Her eyes, amber, gold, and forest green, remained open, fixed on something beyond mortal sight. Blood matted her raven black hair, turning silver streaks to copper. Her lockpicks scattered around her corpse like fallen stars, each tool representing a lifetime of practiced skill. The 7th sister, her favorite pick, gleamed dully near the left hand. She'd named them all, treated them as extensions of her fingers. They'd opened palace vaults, prison doors, saved lives, and ended them. Useless metal now. Thessarian Moonshadow had collapsed against the chamber's eastern wall, crimson spreading across his elegant robes. The elf wizard's fingers still clutched his spellbook, though blood had soaked through its precious pages, dissolving centuries of accumulated knowledge into ineligible red rune. Silver morning bells in his platinum hair chimed softly with each drop of water from above, playing a dirge for the dead. The book itself, bound in wyvern hide and inked in his own blood-infused mixture, had been his life's work. Every spell meticulously copied, every notation precisely placed. He'd spent 90 years gathering its contents, traveling to forgotten libraries, bargaining with demons for scraps of lore. Gone now, drowned in arterial spray. Grimjaw Ironforge had made his last stand near the central dais. The dwarf cleric's barrel chest bore a wound mirroring the crack through his holy symbol. Moradin's hammer split down the middle, divine blessing severed. His steel-gray eyes remained fierce even in death, locked in an expression of defiance that eternity couldn't erase. Runic tattoos on his forearms had dimmed, their protective magic exhausted. He died on his feet, or close enough. One knee touched stone, but his back remained straight, shoulders squared against the fate that claimed him. His warhammer lay beyond reach, its head cracked from striking too many skulls, breaking too many bones. Lyralei, Moon Whisper, sprawled furthest from the group, her ranger's instincts having carried her to high ground before the end. Her bow, carved from a branch freely given by a tree-ent elder, lay snapped beside her. The string coiled like a dying serpent. Arrows littered the elevated alcove, each shaft representing a life taken in those final moments. Not enough lives. Never enough. The vine tattoo along her right forearm had withered, its moon phase dark. Even her eyes, violet, had lost their luminescence, staring into the middle distance where death waited for everyone. evidence of their last stand painted in the tomb as violence. Scorch marks blackened the walls where Thessarian's fireballs had detonated, leaving shadows of skeletal warriors burned into the stone. Deep gouges marked Alaric's desperate sword work, each strike a prayer made of steel. Shattered bones carpeted the floor, femurs, ribs, skulls, split by Grimjaw's hammer. But basic math had defeated heroism. For every skeleton destroyed, 3 had taken its place. For every spell cast, 10 more enemies poured from the hidden bone pits. The Silver Dawn had fought like legends made flesh, had carved through ranks of undead with skill honed across hundreds of adventures. It hadn't mattered. The massive necromantic sigil inscribed across the chamber floor pulsed with its spent power, its lines still warm from the ritual that had animated so many corpses. Ancient Karathen death traps had herded them toward the center, away from exits, into the prepared killing ground. Months of preparation had transformed the tomb into a slaughterhouse designed for one purpose: to end the Silver Dawn. And above it all, water continued to drip eternally. Drip, drip, drip. Each drop a heartbeat in a place without hearts. The tomb's darkness withered, and more than just a shadow. Necromantic energy saturated the air, thick as fog, tasting of copper and grave dirt. It seeped into the stone, to bone, into spaces between seconds. The ancient magic of Karathen's empire, mixed with fresh sorcery, created something new and terrible. In the absolute silence between water drops, something stirred. Not movement, not yet, but potential. A tremor in the fabric of death itself. The kind of disturbance that precedes earthquakes or avalanches, when stability surrenders to catastrophic change. Alaric's fingers twitched. Such a small motion, a dying nerve firing randomly, a muscle contraction as rigor mortis sets in. Any physician would dismiss it as normal post-mortem activity. Bodies did strange things after death. Everyone understood this, except Alaric's fingers twitched again, and this time with purpose. His chest wound gaped wide, exposing shattered ribs and torn organs. No blood flowed. His heart had pumped its last a little over an hour ago. Yet his hand moved. Fingers curled slowly into a fist. The motion belonged to a living man testing his strength, not a corpse surrendering to decay. As your eyes snap open, not the clouded gaze of death, not the empty stare of recently deceased. Alaric's eyes ablaze with awareness, with confusion, with impossible consciousness. He saw the darkness, and, more disturbing, the darkness revealed itself to him. Every detail of the tomb emerged in perfect clarity, despite the absolute absence of light. He drew breath. His lungs, punctured and useless, expanded anyway. Air whistled through the hole in his chest, serving no purpose. He breathed because living things breathed, because 34 years of habit commanded it. The action brought no relief, no oxygen, no life. "By the light," he whispered, and his voice emerged clear despite a ravaged throat. "What?" 30 feet away, Whisper jerked upright like a marionette yanked by invisible strings, her head lolled at the impossible angle. Neck clearly broken, yet she moved with fluid grace that had denied her in life. One hand rose to her throat, fingers exploring the wound that had ended her. No blood flowed. The gash smiled its crimson smile, but her body had no more blood to give. be," she breathed. Her voice came out wrong. Not a whisper, by choice, but because air escaped through the extra opening in her throat. "We died. I remember dying." She remembered the skeleton's rusty blade. Remembered trying to dodge. Remembered being too slow. The burn of metal through flesh. The taste of copper flooding her mouth. The world tilting as she fell. Then nothing. Then this? Against the eastern wall, Thessarian's violet eyes flickered open. The elf's natural grace had abandoned him. He moved like a poorly controlled puppet, limbs responding seconds after his mind commanded. His blood-soaked fingers released his ruined spellbook and stared at his hands. Gray. His skin had turned the gray of old parchment, of things left too long in tubes. The permanent ink stains on his fingertips remained, but the flesh beneath had changed. He pressed thumb to forefinger, testing. The skin compressed, but didn't spring back, like clay rather than living tissue. This is impossible, he muttered. His scholar's mind racing thoughts of explanations. Death, it's a binary state. One is alive or dead. There are no gradients, no middle grounds. The souls depart. Body decays. This is fundamental. This is... He stopped. His chest had been moving as he spoke, the habit of breathing driving the motion. But when he forced on it, when he tried to stop, his lungs continued their pointless rhythm. He couldn't stop breathing. He couldn't stop mimicking life. A sound like grinding millstones filled the chamber. Grimjaw pushed himself upright, his movements deliberate and wrong. The wound across his chest gaped wide, yet he stood as if it were a minor inconvenience. His steel-gray eyes fixed on his broken holy symbol, still clutched in his dead fingers. "Moradin's forge," he growled, voice emerging from deep within his chest. "The pain's gone." He was right. The agony that had defined their final moments, the burning, tearing, crushing pain of death, had vanished. In its place sat cold emptiness, an absence of sensation that somehow ached worse than any wound. From her elevated position, Lyralei rolled to her feet with none of her usual grace. Each movement came a heartbeat too late, as if her mind had to remember how joints worked, how balance functioned. Her violet and green eyes swept the chamber, seeing perfectly in darkness that should have blinded her. "We're dead," she stammered, matter of fact as any ranger reporting tracks. "Hearts aren't beating, blood's not flowing, but we're moving, thinking, seeing in pitch darkness." She knocked an arrow from habit, then stared at her hands performing the familiar motion. The bow was broken. The arrow served no purpose, yet her muscles remembered, insisting on a lifetime of routine. "Healing," Grimjaw rumbled, already reaching for divine power. "Whatever this is, Moradin's blessing will..." He stopped. The connection to his god remained, but muffled, like trying to shout through thick cloth. He pushed harder, reaching for the warm certainty of divine magic. It slipped away, like water through dead fingers. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no!" Golden light flickered around his hands, weak, stuttering, wrong. The healing prayer formed on his lips, each word precisely pronounced. Power flowed, but changed, corrupted. What should have been warm became cold. What should have mended became something else. The light touched his chest wound. Instead of closing, the flesh writhed, trying to remember its proper shape. Skin stretched but didn't heal. the wound remained. Neither better nor worse, simply acknowledged by divine power that couldn't fix it, what had already died. My mistress lost weave. Thessarian breathed, his academic mind processing the implications. We're not alive, but we're not exactly dead either. This is impossible. Alaric finished, pushing himself to his knees, his armor scraped against stone, the sound sharp in the tomb's silence. The dead don't rise, not like this, not with their minds intact. Whisper had found her lockpicks, gathered them with movement too quickly, too desperate. Her hands shook, not from fear, but from trying to move at living speeds when her body wanted to be still. Valdris, she hissed through her torn throat. He did something. The ritual. The sigil. They'd broken his forces, shattered his skeletal legions, driven the Lich himself from the field. Victory had seemed possible, probable, certain, until the bone pits opened, until the sigil flared, until the tomb itself turned against them. We need to leave, Lyralei said, already moving toward the eastern passage. Her gait stuttered, caught between living memory and dead reality. Find answers. Find. She froze. They all heard it. Footsteps in the darkness beyond the passage. Measured, deliberate. The click of bone on stone. Alaric reached for the Dawnbringer before remembering his blade lay in pieces. His hand closed on empty air, muscle memory betraying him. Around him, his companions reached for weapons and fell into combat stances, prepared for a fight that their dead bodies couldn't win. The footsteps stopped at the passage threshold. Then Valdris the Eternal stepped into their tomb, and the temperature dropped another 10 degrees. The Lich wore nobility like a remembered dream. His form had been tall once, commanding once, handsome once. Now bone showed through gaps of mummified flesh. His robes, midnight blue with silver trim, hung from a frame that had forgotten what muscle meant. Points of crimson light burned in empty sockets, and when he smiled, too many teeth gleamed in darkness. My newest bound ones, he said. His voice carried weight of centuries, the patience of stone, the certainty of entropy. Welcome to your new existence.